In the crisp, rust-colored autumn of 1991, the quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, was jolted by a nightmare that no parent ever dreams of facing. A 5-year-old girl, full of laughter and life, disappeared from her bed in the dead of night. Her mother had come home from a long hospital shift, only to find the room empty, the window flung open and the curtain fluttering in the cold wind. No struggle, no sound, just a silence so deep it screamed. 9 years passed, and then a forgotten toy resurfaced, a battered voice recorder from her daughter's childhood. When Elaine pressed play, expecting static or perhaps a long-lost lullaby, she instead heard something bone-chilling, words not meant to be heard, a truth buried deep, now clawing its way into the light. What that recording unearthed would pull investigators down a path darker than they ever imagined. That warm June afternoon in Portland, Elaine R.H. stood in the living room of the house that had once echoed with her daughter's laughter. The walls, now quiet and faded, had become a gallery of grief. She was sealing the last of the moving boxes with tape, each rip of the roll sounding like a final goodbye. Though most of the furniture remained, the home felt vacant, not just physically, but in spirit. It no longer belonged to her. It belonged to Charles, her ex-husband, the man who once promised forever. That reality settled over her like a thick fog, pressing down on her chest. Charles knelt beside her, meticulously securing another box. At 45, his hands were still steady, his arms hardened by years of carpentry. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. After 15 years of marriage, their silence had its own rhythm. Even divorce hadn't taken that from them. "This one's done," Elaine murmured, nudging a box toward him. Inside were her nursing scrubs, textbooks, and the stethoscope she had cherished since graduation. Charles picked it up effortlessly and said he'd take it to the car. His voice was even, but the way he glanced at her lingered a second too long. Elaine focused on the next box, her movements slower now. Each item she packed felt like burying a piece of the past. After Izzy vanished, they tried everything to stay together. Grief counseling, church, endless hours of routine. But trauma is a shapeshifter. It finds its way in, no matter how fortified the walls. Charles turned inward, seeking refuge in wood and sawdust. She chose a different path, burying herself in 12-hour shifts at the hospital, sometimes going days without sleep just to avoid thinking. The arguments had started small, forgotten groceries, unpaid bills, but beneath every fight lay a festering wound of guilt and unspoken questions. 6 months ago, they finally surrendered. They stood across from each other, weary and weathered, and admitted the truth that had long haunted them. Their love couldn't survive the vacuum that Izzy's absence had left. It was no one's fault, and somehow that made it worse. Charles came back in, sweat dotting his brow. "Almost done," he said, wiping his forehead. His voice was softer now, touched with fatigue. "Just a couple more." Elaine looked up, hesitating. "I want to see her room, one last time." He paused, his expression softening. "Take your time, I'll finish out here." As she climbed the stairs, her fingers brushed the oak banister he had installed the year they moved in. Every creak beneath her feet was a whisper of a memory. She paused at the door, her heart pounding like it had all those years ago. She opened it slowly, like opening a time capsule. The room was untouched. Pink walls with hand-painted butterflies, a white dresser dotted with sparkly stickers, and that tiny bed with the My Little Pony comforter. Only the window had changed, now secured with locks and iron bars. Added far too late. Elaine stood still, letting the weight of that October night crash back over her. She had returned from a grueling shift, barely able to stand, expecting to peek in on her sleeping daughter. Instead, she found an empty bed and a nightmare that would stretch endlessly. The police came swiftly. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Bloodhounds combed the woods. Hundreds of neighbors volunteered. But nothing, not a footprint, not a thread. The media frenzy lasted a few weeks, then silence. The FBI came and went, their interest fading when no evidence pointed beyond state lines. The case went cold, like the autumn air that had swept through the open window. Elaine stepped to the dresser and picked up a photo framed in silver. Izzy's toothy grin radiated joy, her favorite striped shirt just visible above the denim overalls she wore constantly. Elaine kissed her fingers and pressed them gently to the glass. "Goodbye, baby girl," she whispered. Her voice cracked, swallowed by the hush of the room. Wiping away tears, she returned downstairs. Charles stood by her Honda Civic, the final boxes loaded. They faced each other on the driveway, two people who had once imagined growing old together, now severing the last of the threads between them. "You gonna be okay?" he asked, trying to mask the worry behind casual concern. "I'll figure it out," Elaine said, managing a small, weary smile. "We both will." She got into the car, rolling down the window. Charles leaned in, eyes flicking toward the back seat stacked with boxes. "You sure you want to take all that? Your new place isn't very big." "If it gets too crowded, I'll find a storage unit. It'll be fine," she replied. She hesitated, then added more gently, "Take care of yourself, Charles." "You too," he said. "We'll run into each other. Portland's not that big." She gave a quiet nod and pulled away, the driveway shrinking in her rearview mirror. But she didn't know that this goodbye wasn't the end. Not yet. Because somewhere, in one of those boxes, an old recorder waited, and it held a voice from the past. A voice that would shatter everything they thought they knew. The 15-minute drive to Elaine's new apartment felt like more than a change of address. It felt like she was crossing a boundary into another existence. Her new place was a modest 2-bedroom in a plain brick complex near the hospital. It was practical, efficient, close enough for late-night shifts, and far enough to clung to her old home. But the change in scenery couldn't silence the echo of loss that followed her. Unloading took longer than expected. The building's wheeled cart offered some help, but she still made several trips up the stairs. Neighbors watched from behind curtains or over their balconies with passive curiosity, but no one offered assistance. That was fine. Elaine didn't want new connections. Not yet. Her world still orbited a center that no longer existed. By dusk, her living room was a maze of cardboard towers. Collapsing onto the sagging second-hand couch she'd thrifted years ago, Elaine exhaled, her body aching. She should have started with the essentials, clothes, toiletries, cookware, but her eyes kept drifting to the box Charles had labeled Izzy's favorites. Drawn by a gravity stronger than exhaustion, she pulled the box toward her, lifting the flaps with care. Sitting on top was the purple owl plushie Izzy had clung to like a talisman. Then came the unicorn, a patchwork of glitter and threadbare spots, followed by a handful of other dolls that had once populated fantastical tea parties. Beneath them were folded dresses, fleece pajamas, still carrying a whisper of baby shampoo and graham crackers. The books came next: Corduroy, Where the Wild Things Are, The Velveteen Rabbit, each one a fragment of the bedtime rituals they used to share. Elaine's fingers brushed their spines like relics, and then she saw it, the red and white cassette recorder. Not the one Izzy had desperately wanted, but the off-brand substitute they'd agreed on during a tight year when the water heater had taken precedence. Elaine picked it up, surprised by its weight. Probably dead batteries, she thought. She opened the compartment to find a crusty residue, leaked batteries. Cleaning the contacts with a tissue, she dropped in fresh ones from her junk drawer. When she pressed play, static crackled through the speaker. Then a voice, small, bright. Testing, testing. This is Isabella Marie Rhodes, and I'm 5 years old." Elaine gasped. Her heart twisted violently as tears sprang to her eyes. It was Izzy. Her daughter's voice suspended in time, innocent and unguarded. She listened as Izzy chattered about her day, her preschool friends, a butterfly in the garden. Then came a shift, faint movement, then Charles' voice. Izzy, come to the princess room when you're done. Remember what I promised. Once we're finished, we'll go to Toys R Us for that new My Little Pony. Elaine rewound the tape and played that part again. Something was off. Charles's tone, it wasn't stern or playful. It was coaxing, manipulative. And princess room? That was odd. Izzy had never liked princesses. She was all about dragons and puppies and magical creatures. Elaine frowned. She sifted through the box again. No pony figurines. Maybe they were in another box, or maybe Charles had kept them. Some things had been too painful to part with. Still, the phrase gnawed at her. Princess room. It didn't fit. She set the recorder aside and forced herself to unpack. The evening wore on as she slowly reconstructed her life in foreign corners. Plates in unfamiliar cabinets, photos placed with hesitant hands. But when she went to file her paperwork, she realized something critical was missing. Her nursing license renewal documents. Panic flared. Her shift started in less than 2 hours. Without those papers, she couldn't work. She called Charles, who answered after a few rings. I think I left my license documents at the house. Can I stop by to look? A pause. I just left for my grief group. I won't be home until late. Elaine hesitated. Would it be okay if I used my key? Of course, just lock up. The gratitude and unease mixed in her chest. The house key felt strange in her hand, too familiar and foreign all at once. The drive back was quiet, the sun setting in streaks of orange and violet. The house loomed darker than she remembered. She stepped inside, switching on the lights. Nothing had moved, but everything felt different. She found the folder in the bedroom filing cabinet, right where she used to keep it. Relief rushed through her. She turned to go, but the phrase princess room still clung to her thoughts like static. Her feet carried her upstairs again. Izzy's room was emptier now, her belongings packed away. The quiet made it feel even sadder. She examined every wall, every surface, looking for clues. Nothing stood out. No castle stickers, no fairy tale posters. The closet door creaked open to reveal nothing but hangers. Then her eyes landed on the old wardrobe. It tilted slightly forward. Elaine touched it, noting the gap beneath one leg. Warped floorboards. She nudged it. It wobbled. It could fall. She couldn't leave it like that, especially not if Charles came in late and stumbled on it. There was time. Harrison's Hardware would be open for another 30 minutes. She'd grab some shims, fix it, and head to work. As she turned to leave, the phone rang downstairs. Instinctively, she moved to answer it, then stopped. This wasn't her house anymore. The ringing ended. The answering machine clicked. You've reached the Rhodes residence. Please leave a message. A woman's voice followed. Charles, this is Mrs. Jansen from Group. I need you to call me back as soon as possible. You've missed 3 sessions now. That's 3 weeks. The group is concerned. Please, call me. Elaine froze. 3 weeks? But Charles had just told her he was at therapy. Every Tuesday for years. It was their one shared routine. Mrs. Jansen had helped build their emotional scaffolding. Why would he lie? Concern twisted inside her. It wasn't her responsibility anymore, but worry clung tight. She returned to her car, the folder clutched in one hand. The car phone, a relic from the previous owner, was still operational. She picked it up and called Charles. The line rang. Once, twice. Then he answered. Hello? His voice was breathless, strained. Charles, it's me. Are you okay? Where are you? Silence stretched. Static buzzed. Charles. Yes, he said. His voice cracked. And then he went silent again. I mean, no, but I'm on my way there. Charles's voice came fast, words stumbling over each other like a man caught off guard. I went to pick up Matthew. He lives way out past Hillside, but we're going to therapy together tonight. I'll just be 15 minutes late. Why? Elaine gripped the phone tighter. There was a subtle tremor in his voice, one she recognized. Charles was lying. She'd heard it before, small deceptions over birthday surprises or well-meaning omissions. This had the same frantic energy, the same too detailed explanation meant to preempt questions. I didn't mean to pry, she said cautiously, choosing her words with care. It's just, while I was at the house picking up my documents, a call came in. It went to voicemail. It was Mrs. Jansen. Right, Charles chuckled, but it landed flat. She really hates tardiness at group. I've been late a few times lately. Probably just wanted to remind me not to make a habit of it. But being late wasn't the same as missing 3 entire weeks. Elaine knew it. He knew it. Yet he pressed on casually. What'd she say? Elaine hesitated. Confrontation seemed pointless now. They weren't married anymore. His lies weren't her responsibility. Nothing specific, she lied. Just asked you to call her back. Right, well, I'd better get moving. Matthew's waiting. Sure, she said. Drive safe. You too. Bye, Elaine. She hung up, staring at the phone for a long moment, unease curling in her stomach. Charles had always been a bad liar when it came to things that mattered, and tonight he was hiding something. She drove toward Harrison's Hardware, headlights carving shadows through the quiet streets. The small family-owned shop was one of the last of its kind, having survived the retail apocalypse through loyalty and kindness. The bell jingled as she stepped in. Elaine! George Harrison, the owner's son, grinned from behind the counter. Good to see you. Everything all right? Just need some shims. Got a wardrobe on the verge of collapse, she replied. Aisle 3, halfway down. Hey, how's Charles's renovation project going? Need an extra hand? I've got time this weekend. Elaine paused. Renovation? Yeah, the hobby room he's building. He was in last Saturday. Grabbed plywood, paint, all kinds of stuff. Elaine's mouth went dry. You sure it was Charles? George squinted. Yeah, said he was finally doing it. Making that woodworking room he used to talk about. That dream had died years ago, buried under layers of grief after Izzy vanished. Charles had barely touched his tools since. Well, she said, forcing a smile. I'll ask him about it. Thanks. She paid, bag rustling as she placed it in the passenger seat. Back in the car, her thoughts spun. A secret renovation. Therapy missed for weeks. Lies stacked on lies. Maybe Charles was struggling with a divorce. Maybe he was ashamed. But shame didn't explain the urgency she felt in her chest. Her dashboard clock read 8:05. If she moved quickly, she could stabilize the wardrobe and still make her shift, but something deeper pulled at her. A gnawing sense that she was brushing up against a truth not meant to be found. She returned to the house, parking in the same familiar driveway that once meant safety. The porch light glowed. Her key turned easily in the lock. Inside, darkness loomed. She flipped the entryway switch and headed for the stairs, bag in hand. Halfway up, she noticed something odd. Light spilling from beneath the office door. Charles? She called, instinct tightening her voice. No answer. But she heard movement. Quick, clumsy steps, a chair scraping, papers rustling. Charles, are you home? Still silence. Her heart raced. She reached the top of the stairs and slowly opened the door. And stopped. Standing in the middle of the ransacked office was Matthew Tenko. Papers blanketed the floor, drawers yanked open, files scattered like leaves in a storm. Elaine's breath caught. Matthew, What are you doing here? I thought you were with—" He turned slowly. Sweat clung to his face, hair wild and unkempt. His skin was ghostly pale. When his eyes locked onto hers, she saw nothing but black, dilated pupils and something darker, something hollow. "Are you all right? You looked—" She couldn't finish the sentence. He wasn't. Matthew took a shaky step forward. The air around him reeked. Alcohol, stress, and something more sour. "What are you doing here? Did Charles ask you to get something?" He didn't answer, just kept moving. Elaine's voice turned firm. "Matthew, stop. You're not well. I'm going to call someone." She reached for the office phone. He lunged. His hands seized her wrists, grip vice, tight. "Let go," she cried, trying to wrench free. "You're hurting me." Panic surged. She shoved him hard, breaking his hold, stumbling backward out of the office. She grabbed the door, trying to slam it shut, but he caught it, forcing it open. Fear crashed through her like ice water. This wasn't the man she'd known. Not the gentle soul who carved toy animals for Izzy, who built the back deck one summer with Charles while laughing over beers. This Matthew, this version, was a stranger. Something was terribly wrong. Elaine turned to flee down the stairs, but before she could make it, Matthew lunged from behind, his arms locked around her waist like iron bands. She thrashed and screamed, her feet dragging against the hardwood as he hauled her down the hallway. "No," she cried, twisting in his grip, but he was too strong. He forced open Izzy's bedroom door and threw her onto the bed. The My Little Pony comforter softened the impact, but the comfort was false. Matthew was on top of her in an instant, pressing her down. His breath stank of whiskey and sweat. His hands groped with blind, mechanical urgency. "Matthew, please," Elaine begged, her voice cracking with panic. "You have a wife, a daughter. Think about them." But he didn't hear her, or chose not to. His eyes were vacant, his expression disturbingly calm as he fumbled at her clothing. Instinct kicked in. Her hand found Izzy's ceramic nightlight, a small pink elephant perched on the bedside table. With all her strength she swung it. The ceramic shattered against his temple. He let out a grunt, his body rolling sideways. Elaine scrambled off the bed, adrenaline coursing through her. But Matthew recovered faster than she expected. He grabbed her arm and yanked her back, slamming her into the wardrobe. Pain exploded through her spine. She crumpled to the floor as the wardrobe, already unbalanced, began to tip. With a thunderous crash it fell forward, smashing through the floorboards beneath. Dust choked the air. Where the floor had been now yawned a cavity hidden for who knew how long, and inside were cardboard boxes, dozens of them, packed tightly with VHS tapes and VCDs. Matthew's entire demeanor shifted. He knelt like a pilgrim at an altar, eyes lighting up with a terrifying glee. "This is what I was looking for," he whispered. Elaine, dazed and gasping, watched as he grabbed tapes by the armful, clutching them like treasure. Confusion burned through her fear. What were these tapes? Why were they hidden here? "Stop!" she shouted, lunging for him. She managed to knock several tapes from his hands. They scattered across the floor, plastic clattering like bones. "Damn it," Matthew snarled, shoving past her, cradling what tapes he could carry. He fled the room, boots pounding down the stairs. "I'm calling the police!" Elaine screamed, forcing herself to stand. Through the front window she saw him stagger down the driveway, never looking back, clutching the tapes to his chest like lifelines. Elaine collapsed against the wall, her wrist burned, her back throbbed, but the fear had been replaced by something else. Dread. Deep, coiling dread. What had he taken? What had been hidden beneath the floor of her daughter's bedroom? She turned to the hole. Dozens of boxes remained. Only a fraction had been stolen. She reached for the closest cassette, her hand trembling. The label was handwritten. Princess Room, Volume 47. That phrase again, from the recorder. But now it carried a darkness, a weight she didn't yet understand. Her fingers moved with practiced urgency, dialing 911. The phone felt like it weighed 100 pounds. "There's been an assault," she gasped. 4728 Elm Street. A man attacked me. His name is Matthew Tenko. He stole things. The dispatcher's voice was calm. Elaine answered mechanically, her eyes still locked on the hole. "Police are on the way. Stay on the line." While waiting, her curiosity overwhelmed her. She picked up the tapes Matthew had dropped. Each one bore the same chilling title: Princess Room, Volume 23, Volume 89, Volume 256. Her stomach twisted. How many volumes were there? She peered into the floor cavity. Box after box. Hundreds of tapes, all labeled the same. Then came the sirens. Red and blue light bled across the walls. 2 patrol cars screeched to a halt outside. A uniformed officer appeared at the door, hand on his holster. Then, "Are you Elaine Rodez?" "Yes," she replied, unsteady on her feet. "He left 10 minutes ago. He was drunk, or high. He took these." She gestured to the tapes. More officers entered the house, securing the perimeter. One man approached in plain clothes, flashing a badge. Detective Morrison, mid-50s, weathered face. Eyes that had seen too much and still watched everything. Elaine recounted it all. Matthew's intrusion, the attack, the collapse of the wardrobe, the tapes. Morrison listened with practiced stillness, scribbling notes. "You said his name was Matthew Tenko?" "Yes, was my ex-husband's best friend. Since high school." I should call Charles." "Please do. We'll need to speak with him." Lane dialed. The phone rang several times before Charles answered, irritation bleeding through his voice. "Lane, what is it now? Where are you?" she asked, her voice tight. "You said you were with Matthew at therapy, but he was just here. He attacked me. The police are here now." Silence. "They want to talk to you," she continued. She handed the phone to Morrison. "Mr. Rhodes, Detective Morrison. There's been an incident involving..." Click. The line went dead. Morrison's face hardened. He hung up. "He said he was at group therapy," Elaine added, "with Mrs. Jansen, but that's not possible." "We'll confirm," Morrison said, turning to his team. "Get the therapy center's address and this Mrs. Jansen's number. Send a unit." As officers worked, Morrison turned back to the tapes. He picked one up, studying the label. "Delete Princess Room." "What does that mean?" Elaine swallowed. I heard it today. On a tape recorder. From my daughter. She disappeared 9 years ago." Morrison's eyes sharpened. "Your daughter is missing?" "Her name was Isabella. Izzy. She was 5. She vanished from this house. We never found out what happened." He looked around the room as though seeing it for the first time. "Ma'am, I think we should see what's on these tapes." In the living room, Elaine's hands trembled as she turned on the television and fed one of the discs into the player. Static gave way to a grainy image. The living room. A little girl. Charles. They were building with blocks. Izzy's laughter filled the room, clear and musical. Elaine gasped. That was before she disappeared, a few months before. But in her chest, a storm had already started, because whatever lay hidden in those tapes, it was only just beginning to reveal itself. On the screen, Charles turned to face the camera with a warm smile. "Izzy, you want to play a game? Go to the princess room and surprise me." "Okay, Daddy," Izzy squealed with innocent joy before dashing out of frame. Her tiny footsteps echoed down the hallway and then down the stairs. Elaine watched, heart thudding. "She's going to the basement," she whispered. "But, we never called it the princess room." The camera remained fixed as Charles began to count, slowly, deliberately. 1, 2, 3. He stretched the numbers, lingering on each syllable like a ritual. At 10 he stood and moved toward the basement door. The video cut out. When it resumed, the scene was different. They were in a room Elaine had never seen. The walls were painted pink, lined with stuffed animals. A small bed covered in a princess-themed comforter sat against a far wall. But the sight of Izzy sitting there sent a chill down Elaine's spine. She wore a tiny bikini, far too adult, and looked visibly uncomfortable. Charles's voice drifted from behind the camera. "Now pose for Daddy." Elaine gasped. What followed next shattered her. Charles stepped into the frame, sitting beside Izzy, and began touching her in ways that no father should ever touch a child. Izzy's face was a portrait of innocence, tainted by confusion. "Stop!" Elaine cried, her voice shaking. "Turn it off!" Detective Morrison immediately paused the tape. Elaine collapsed onto the couch, sobs tearing from her chest. The man she'd trusted, loved, built a life with, he was a monster. "I didn't know. I never knew. Oh, God, my baby." Morrison sat beside her, voice firm but compassionate. "Mrs. Rodas, listen to me. Is it possible? Could your daughter still be in this house?" Elaine's breath caught. The idea hadn't even entered her mind. "The basement," she said, her voice trembling. "It's always been locked. Charles kept the only key, said it was for safety, to protect his tools." An officer approached, his voice clipped. "Detective, I spoke to Mrs. Jansen. Charles hasn't attended therapy in 3 weeks. He's not there tonight." Morrison stood. "That's enough. We have probable cause. We're going into that basement. Get the breaching tools." Elaine wiped her tears, standing beside them. "Yes, do it. If there's even the slightest chance." She couldn't finish. The words were too heavy. Officers returned quickly, carrying a battering ram and crowbars. They approached the basement door, a heavy oak slab that now looked less like a precaution and more like a prison gate. "Stand back, ma'am," Morrison instructed. Elaine moved to the far wall, bracing herself as her heart pounded. Could it be? Could the answers they had searched for all these years be buried just beneath their feet? The first blow rocked the doorframe. The second cracked the wood. The third sent splinters flying. On the fourth, the door crashed open, revealing a stairwell descending into shadow. An officer found the light switch. Fluorescence buzzed to life, casting a sterile glow over a space that looked strangely familiar. "Clear. You can come down," Morrison called. Elaine stepped cautiously down the stairs. The basement looked just as she remembered. Charles's workbench, the neat rows of tools, labeled boxes of screws and nails, the washer and dryer humming quietly in one corner. "My husband was meticulous," she whispered. "He spent hours down here. It was his space. I rarely came down." Morrison nodded, but his expression remained guarded. "Check everything. This room we saw on the tape, it has to be hidden somewhere nearby." Officers spread out, tapping on walls, checking for hollow spots, odd seams in the concrete, or any signs of concealed construction. Upstairs, they could hear other officers scanning more of the tapes. Elaine shuddered at the thought. She didn't want to know what was being uncovered. "He'd bought reservation supplies," she said suddenly, remembering George from the hardware store. "Lumber, paint, a project," he told no one. "Any idea where the original blueprints might be?" Morrison asked. She shook her head. "They exist, but Charles kept them. I wouldn't know where to look." For over 20 minutes they searched. Every corner was examined, every box moved. Elaine, desperate to help, crawled on her hands and knees, scanning for anything out of place. Behind the washing machine, something caught her eye. A glint, barely visible, a thin edge of metal that didn't match the concrete. "Detective," she called, her voice hoarse. "There's something under here." Morrison rushed over, and with that glint of metal a new chapter began, one that would reveal more horrors than any of them could have imagined. Morrison and two officers rushed over, muscles straining as they pulled the washing machine away from the wall. The dryer scraped loudly as it followed, revealing the dusty floor beneath. Lying where the washer had stood was a disc, coated in grime. Morrison picked it up with gloved hands. "Room volume 331, he read aloud. One of the officers leaned closer. "Look at the wall." Where the machines had shielded it from view, a section of drywall appeared subtly off, barely perceptible until seen from the right angle. The paint tone mismatched slightly, and the texture broke the uniformity of the wall. Morrison ran his fingers along a seam until they found a hidden latch. The craftsmanship was expert. Invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. "Stand back," he ordered. The latch wouldn't budge. He grunted and accepted a crowbar from another officer. Metal scraped, tension thick in the air. Then, with a sharp snap, the lock gave way. The panels swung open. Behind it, a narrow corridor yawned into darkness. Pink fairy lights were strung along the ceiling, unplugged but clearly installed to guide the way. The air that rolled out was foul, mildew, rust, and something worse. The unmistakable scent of human confinement. Morrison found the light cord and plugged it in. A soft pink glow illuminated the passage. Foam soundproofing lined the walls, absorbing every noise. The tunnel was just wide enough for a single person. "Jesus Christ," muttered an officer. They moved forward single file, Morrison leading the way with his weapon drawn. The passage stretched on, ending at a small, disturbingly cheerful door painted pink and adorned with stickers of princesses. Morrison tried the knob. Locked. He knocked sharply. "Police, open the door." No answer. He pressed his ear to the wood but heard nothing. The soundproofing was too effective. He lifted his fist to knock again. When the door clicked open. It creaked a few inches, and a soft voice called out, "Daddy?" The door swung wider. A teenage girl stood in the threshold, wearing a pink nightgown. Her blonde hair was long, tangled, matted from years of neglect. Her smile faded into horror when she saw Morrison and the officers behind him. Her scream pierced the air. "No, you're not real. Daddy said everyone's dead." Elaine pushed past the officers before they could stop her. Her eyes locked onto the girl. Despite the age, the changes, the shadows of trauma, she knew. Every fiber of her being knew. She ran forward, tears falling freely. "It's Mommy, baby. It's me." The girl backed away, shaking her head. "My mom died. Everyone died. Dad said the world ended. He said it's just us now." Elaine dropped to her knees, opening her arms. "No, sweetheart. I've been looking for you. All these years. I never gave up. I never stopped." Izzy whimpered, her voice cracking. "Daddy, Daddy, where are you? They're lying." Elaine reached into her pocket as Morrison handed her a pen. She understood immediately. On her palm she drew a butterfly, a simple design with a smiling face, the same one she'd drawn for Izzy over and over when she was little. "Remember this," she said gently. "Your happy butterfly. You asked for it every time the old one washed off." Izzy stared at the drawing, her breathing slowed, her eyes began to fill. "Mommy?" "Yes, baby. I'm here. And I'm real. He lied to you." Slowly, Izzy stepped forward. Then she ran into Elaine's arms. They collapsed together, sobbing, clinging like lifelines. Morrison gave them a moment before stepping inside. The room was small. no more than 10 by 12 feet. Every surface screamed of twisted delusion. Pink walls, a child's mattress with cartoon sheets, toys scattered across the floor, some fit for a teen, others relics from early childhood. A TV and VCR sat in the corner, a tripod, lights, coloring books, a narrow slot built into the wall for delivering food. In the closet, the officers found the worst of it: adult lingerie in child sizes, cameras, restraints, implements of control disguised as playthings. The air grew heavy. Morrison's voice was tight. "We need medical, now, and all units be advised. Charles Rhodes and Matthew Tenko are suspects in active child abduction and abuse. Apprehend immediately." Paramedics arrived swiftly. Izzy clung to Elaine but allowed the examination. Later in the ambulance, Izzy sat numbly between Elaine and a gentle paramedic. "Dad said there was a war," she whispered. "Nuclear bombs. Everyone else died." Elaine nodded softly, holding her daughter close. "He lied, baby. He lied about everything." Izzy looked down, voice shaking. "He said I had to have a baby to restart the world. I never did. He was disappointed. I thought I'd failed him." Elaine's stomach turned to ice. She squeezed Izzy's hands. "Sweetheart, have you gotten your period?" Izzy nodded. 2 years ago. Dad was so happy. He said now we could really begin." The paramedic took notes, her face unreadable. Elaine steadied her voice. "Honey, what your father did, it wasn't love. Parents protect their children. What he did was wrong. But I love Daddy." "I know," Elaine said gently. "And that love, that trust, he abused it. That kind of love. It's supposed to be safe, not hurtful." Izzy stared down, her world unraveling. "She's stable," the paramedic told Elaine quietly, "but she'll need a full examination." Morrison approached the open ambulance door. "We need to take you both to the station for formal statements. There's no emergency risk. Are you ready?" Elaine nodded. Izzy remained quiet. As they stepped outside, Elaine glanced back. The pink lights still glowed. A path leading to 3,285 days of horror, 9 years of stolen childhood, and finally, freedom. Morrison opened the patrol car door. "Mrs. Rhodes, Isabella, please get in." Elaine helped her daughter into the back seat, then slid in beside her. Izzy pressed close. Her world had shattered. Now, piece by piece, it would be rebuilt. Officer Chen sat at the wheel, adjusting the radio. Static gave way to a voice. "Unit 12, suspects Charles Rhodes and Matthew Tenko, apprehended at 3542 Riverside Drive. 6 additional individuals in custody, requesting transport van." Morrison leaned forward. "That's them. Chen, take us there." "It's on our route." As they drove, Elaine held Izzy close, the girl murmuring questions about her father. Each word twisted deeper into Elaine's heart. The radio continued its grim revelations. "Be advised, child exploitation evidence found on scene. CSU requested." Elaine gently covered Izzy's ears. But the truth would find its way in eventually. Now began the long road toward healing, through a pain no mother should have to bear, and no child should have to survive. The residential street was cloaked in police lights, their red and blue beams casting eerie shadows over modest 2-story homes. Patrol cars blocked both ends, forcing curious neighbors to gather in clusters on the sidewalks, whispering, straining to see past the yellow tape. "Stay in the car," Morrison instructed as he opened the door. "I'll only be a moment." Elaine watched through the window, her heart pounding. 8 men stood near a police van, wrists cuffed, faces caught between shame and defiance. Among them was Charles, his posture defeated, his head bowed. Beside him, Matthew swayed, intoxication still dulling his reactions. The others were strangers, their appearances deceptively normal. Men who could have been teachers, coaches, fathers. Officers moved in and out of a nearby house, their arms full of evidence bags. Elaine strained to hear the snippets of conversation drifting through the cracked window. Found them watching one of the tapes when we entered. Princess Room, Volume 962. It looked recent. They're part of something called the Family Sanctum Fellowship. Rotating meetings, shared material. Elaine recoiled. A network. A system. A grotesque fellowship built on the suffering of children. Her stomach churned. How many other houses like this? How many other daughters? Charles looked up. Their eyes met across the distance. For a beat, neither moved. Then, slowly, his lips twisted into what might have been a smile. Elaine's body moved before her mind caught up. "Stay here," she told Izzy, her voice shaking with rage. She opened the door and strode toward Charles, fury radiating off her like heat. Officers moved to stop her, but she was too quick. Her palm cracked across his face with a sound that echoed through the suburban night. "You're a monster," she screamed. "You're not human." Charles barely reacted. His voice was calm. It was consensual. Izzy loved me. She... "Shut up," an officer barked, grabbing Charles's arm. Another gently pulled Elaine back. "Ma'am, please, this won't help." Through her rage, Elaine saw Matthew watching her. He made an obscene gesture, pursed lips, then slowly dragged his tongue across them. The same man who had broken into the house, who had lunged for the tapes like treasure. "Get her back to the car," Morrison ordered. "These men aren't worth her breath." Elaine returned to the patrol car, chest heaving. "Where did you go, Mommy? Why did you hit Daddy?" Izzy asked, her voice soft, confused. Elaine pulled her close. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I shouldn't have." Outside, the suspects were loaded into separate vehicles. Charles never looked back. Forensic teams continued carrying out boxes, VHS tapes, DVDs, hard drives. The evidence of nightmares. Morrison returned to the car, eyes heavy. "We'll head to the station. You both did incredibly well tonight." Elaine gave the house one final look. Evil had lived there, disguised as love. How many others were hidden behind familiar doors? Izzy yawned, exhaustion catching up. "When can I go home?" Elaine brushed a hand through her daughter's tangled hair. "Soon, baby. To a real home. A safe one." The police station glowed in the distance, a beacon of order amid chaos. Somewhere behind them, Charles and his accomplices were being processed. But Elaine and Izzy's journey was just beginning. Morrison spoke softly to Officer Chen. "Get family services on standby. It's going to be a long night." Inside the station, booking was in full swing. Elaine glimpsed the men being fingerprinted, their belongings catalogued. Charles stood like it was any other evening. No remorse, no humanity. The woman in a gray suit approached. "I'm Sarah Martinez from Child Protective Services. I'll stay with Isabella while you give your statement." Izzy clutched Elaine's hand. "I want to stay with my mom." "Just for a little while," Sarah said gently. "Your mom will be right down the hall." Elaine knelt and hugged her. "It's okay. These people want to help. I'll see you soon." Morrison led Elaine to a small interview room, beige walls, functional furniture. A video camera in the corner recorded everything. "Take your time," he said. "Start from the beginning." Elaine spoke for nearly an hour. Her marriage, Izzy's birth, the night of the disappearance, the grief, the tape recorder, the truth unraveling. Morrison mostly listened. When she finished, she felt hollow. What happens now? What did Charles do to her? Morrison's face hardened. "What you're about to hear is difficult. But you deserve to know. He led her to an observation room. Behind the glass, Charles sat at a table, handcuffed, calm. A detective leaned forward. Charles's voice filled the room through a speaker. He spoke with chilling pride. I took her that night, October 15th, 1991. Elaine was on shift. I carried Izzy to the room I'd built. She never woke. I staged the scene. Everyone believed it. He smiled. She lived down there for 9 years. I told her the world ended. Nuclear war. Just us now. She believed everything. Elaine staggered. Morrison caught her. Well, the detective asked. Charles shrugged. She was mine. My creation. Why shouldn't I keep her? I gave her love, toys, purpose. I told her we were rebuilding humanity, that she needed to have my baby. Elaine covered her mouth, trembling. The false wall, Charles continued. I built it during a fake renovation, filed fake permits, soundproofed everything. You walked right past it. Elaine whispered. He was always meticulous. I never suspected. Let's go back, Morrison said. You've heard enough. Back in the interview room, Elaine sank into a chair. What about Matthew? Why break in? Jealousy, Morrison said. He confessed. Charles was the star in their ring. His videos were prized. Matthew wanted access. When he couldn't find Izzy, he came for the collection. He didn't expect to find you. Attacked me, Elaine said flatly. Me know, he admitted it, said you reminded him of her. Morrison softened. Elaine, Izzy will need time. Years of abuse, conditioning. It's deep. But she's alive. And she has you. He stood. Let's reunite you two. They found Izzy waiting with Sarah. When she saw her mother, she bolted. Elaine caught her, holding her close. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. An officer will escort you to the hospital, Sarah said gently, for her full exam. They sat in a quiet waiting room, Izzy curled against her mother. Silence stretched, heavy. Then, Izzy began to cry. Not confusion, but grief. I lied about everything, she sobbed. I thought the world was gone, that you were gone. Why did he do that to me? Elaine held her close. I don't know, honey, but none of this was your fault. You were just a child who believed the man who should have protected you. I loved him, Izzy whispered, even when I thought I was saving the world. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid. You're brave. You survived. And now we heal. Together. They sat in silence, strength rebuilding piece by piece. We'll find a new home, Elaine said softly. You'll go to school, make friends, have the life you were denied. Izzy nodded. Will people hate me? Will it hurt? Elaine kissed her hair. Some pain won't fade overnight, but love helps. Time helps. And you'll decide who deserves your truth. An officer appeared. The escort is ready. They stood, hand in hand. As they walked through the police station, Elaine felt the weight of the past, but also the light of the future. Love, real, enduring, protective, had led her through the dark. And it would lead them still. At the door, Izzy whispered, I'm scared, Mom. Me too, Elaine replied. But we're together now, and together we can face anything. They stepped into the night, toward healing, toward hope, toward a future they would build together, one day at a time.